Sunt Adrian Bocăneanu și ard de nerăbdare să vă prezint pe prietenii mei, Matt și Elena Davis. L-am cunoscut pe Matt în spital. Medical vorbind, Matt era fără speranță. Spiritual vorbind, Matt trăia prin speranță. Nu în primul rând speranța unui act medical reușit, care de altfel a avut loc, ci speranța vieții noi, nebiruite, dăruite nouă prin moartea și învierea lui Iisus Hristos. Camera lui de spital, tapetată cu texte biblice și gânduri de iubire și curaj, era o mărturie grăitoare a acestei uimitoare speranțe. Soția lui, Elena, întregește experiența lui Matt cu o istorie asemănătoare și cu aceeași speranță a mântuirii. Welcome, Matt and Elena. Thank you very much for coming. I am exceedingly happy to have you here. Matt, you're the first of the two of you to know a little more than 1 year ago. What were the situation at that time?
Well, I was waiting in the hospital at St. Joseph's, waiting on a heart transplant.
On a heart transplant.
I had an LVAD, a left ventricular assist device. It's a device that's attached to my heart, and I have to wear a pack on the outside that is battery powered to charge all that. I had some clotting complications. I had a stroke, and at that point they determined you need to wait in the hospital until a heart becomes available. So I lived at St. Joseph's for roughly about a month and a half.
And I saw you every other day.
Yeah, and it's when we met, and
and I was fascinated with your room. Your room was like a small chapel filled with religious, posters, Bible verses, all kinds of writings, some very artistic, some child scribbling and drawings, and if you are not in that small chapel, it was your room. You're on the hallways, doing exercising and smiling and encouraging other patients and praying with them. You were like a chaplain for that ward, hospital ward.
It was fun that even some of the nurses knew that I would pray with patients, and they would come and get me. And so there were a few times where they brought me, hey, this patient is going for surgery in the morning and they're very nervous. Could you come pray with them? And so I'd go in smiling as usual and would pray, and it was always a great time.
So you're a substitute chaplain.
Yes.
But your faith was not substitute faith.
No,
it was real faith.
Yes.
Your prayers were not substitute faith. Prayers, real prayers.
Absolutely. And in fact, there's the funny story of when I was told that a heart was available, and they transferred me to Emory University Hospital. And
that was the day when I came to meet you, and your bed was empty.
Yes.
And I wondered, is something bad, or is something good? Bad or good?
Yeah. And so we got to Emory University Hospital, and everybody showed up because we didn't know the timing of when it was going to happen. So it's my wife, her family, my family, and everybody was so nervous. And I was the most calm person in the room because I knew one way or the other I was going to be okay. So I was the one who led prayer. And everybody was more calm after I prayed.
Matt, tell us a little bit about the prehistory of what you just shared with us. Were you a normal boy, or it was something you had in your heart from the beginning?
I was a normal boy.
I don't know about that.
Normal physically. I ran, jumped, swam, all of that. In high school, I wrestled. I wasn't very good, but I wrestled. Had worked at Publix, worked at a grocery store as a stock clerk, had moved office furniture, and I was diagnosed with my condition, idiopathic dilated cardiomyopathy, when I was 24 years old.
24?
Yes.
After that, everything was normal?
everything stayed fairly normal. We knew my heart wasn't good.
You knew that.
But at that point,
Oh,
once
that
I
point.
was diagnosed.
Oh, sure.
But then, bit by bit, it would just get a little bit worse over time, until all of a sudden it was just very bad.
So, what was your reaction when you learned that you have a serious heart condition? At
Well,
24 years of age,
Yeah.
a young man to hear that, it's devastating, I imagine.
Well, I think at the time, I was more upset that they said you shouldn't eat pizza anymore.
That was the worst thing.
Yeah. But it was a thing where I thought, okay, this is what it is. I can't change it. So kind of a what do we do? Started to take my medicine. Didn't do everything the right way. Didn't eat exactly as well as I should have.
What were the recommendations as far as eating and things like that?
Very low sodium diet. Stay away from the heavy fatty foods. Cut down on sugar. It's always best to not drink alcohol. And I didn't quite follow all that, or any of that, rather, very well. And so I don't know if that made the problem worse or not. What I do know is that over the various tests and the various times that I dealt with everything, I still seemed to do everything the right way. All of my blood work always came back. Normally my cholesterol, all of that was well. My blood pressure was actually low. I never had high blood pressure or anything like that. I just had a very enlarged heart that didn't work. It was actually quite a few years later, once I was established at St. Joseph's, that I was told my heart was literally twice the size that it should be.
Twice?
Yeah.
Wow. How was your heart able to enlarge that much, pushing everything aside? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
Interesting.
I don't know. I remember talking to my nurse, and
Sure.
and she looked at it and said, "Whoa!" Yeah.
So you're a very big-hearted person.
Yes. Yes.
What was your connection with God as a child, as a teen, as a young man?
As a child and as a teenager, I was very close to the Lord.
Was that part of your family?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I grew up going to church, went to church.
It was
Except-
being here it was in Georgia, in Atlanta?
Yes. Yeah. I was born in Atlanta.
It was a Southern Baptist church?
It was. I think my very first memories are at a Baptist church, then Presbyterian, then a Pentecostal church.
I see.
So where I really learned about God was at that church. Had a wonderful youth pastor and head pastor there who were very knowledgeable and taught well. So I had all of that in me. I accepted Christ at a summer camp when I was about 9 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
And got baptized at that time? A little later?
Got baptized later.
Yes.
And then I was baptized at the Pentecostal church. And then as a young man, really walked away from the Lord. Really? It was late high school where I felt very kind of frustrated and said, I want to do this on my own. And I said that to God. And God's response was, okay. Yeah, because it's our free will. It's our ability to say, I don't want to follow you.
So you didn't, it was not mainly intellectual, it was not slipping into atheism, no, but you said, I want to live my life without the restrictions or pressure or not, I don't want to be accountant to a higher authority, I want to be my own authority, my own boss.
Yes, that's what I meant, but I think I felt more accountability and more authority walking away from God, knowing that what I was doing was wrong.
Oh, so your conscience was not following your lifestyle.
Yes, exactly. There was never a time where I thought this is exactly the right thing to do. It was always like you said, the conscience, and I think clearly God's Spirit saying,
Yes.
you know you're not doing this the right way.
Yeah.
So,
So you couldn't really enjoy the life you had.
no.
You're running to catch happiness, but the faster you ran, the more elusive happiness was to you.
That's correct. Yeah.
What was the part of your faith, or what happened? What was the impact of your heart condition on your faith?
I think initially it didn't do too much to reconnect me. I imagine some of it as I think back over that time.
Yes.
and just trying to remember, okay, where was I? What was I like? And as I said, there was always a part where God was always calling back to me and bringing me back in, to where I started to go back to church little by little. And then finally it was in late 2013 when they said, okay, this is bad. You need to be evaluated for a heart transplant. Where I had a crisis of sorts, where I thought, okay, what is going on here? Where's, God, why haven't you saved me?
So a few years earlier you said, God, leave me alone.
Yeah.
And now, God, why did you
Yeah.
do this to me?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that illustrates how illogical we are.
Yes.
Yeah. Not you. We all.
Yeah. But it was very illogical.
Yeah. So now you came to struggle. If there is a God, why is me allowing to be in this situation? If He is powerful, why He is not doing something for me? Maybe your conscience was, condemning you. Yeah, but you know what you did, Do you remember how did you treat God? And I imagine it was very, very troubled interior.
Yeah, it was very, very stormy waters.
Stormy.
Yeah.
Stormy.
And it was never a point where I said, if there is a God, it was more of a, hey, why am I here? Why haven't you just fixed this? And then, of course, growing up in that moment of being an adult, and then finally having the realization of, it was talking to one of the chaplains at St. Joseph's Hospital.
I happen to know that,
Yes.
that chaplain, Mary
Yeah.
Beth Krivanek.
Yes.
Yes.
And she came in, and I remember asking her, well, why can't God just provide a miracle? And after listening to me complain, she said, well, isn't this device they want to put in you a miracle? and everything began to change then.
Just with one question,
Yeah.
short question. Yeah, but I know her. I know a little bit about her life story. Behind that question, there's lots of struggle of herself,
Yes.
lots of prayers, lots of commitment, a strong commitment to God. So it's easy to ask the right questions when you have such a background. Yeah. So that began a change for you. That started a change. Yeah. I think you told me on one of our first meeting that when she came to your room, you were under a very, very cloudy heaven or skies. When she left, the clouds began
Yes.
getting away, going
Yes.
away.
My to say like my countenance and just my personality and everything. It was just dark and stormy.
Dark and stormy.
And after talking with her, which she let me talk and just say everything I had to say, and then she took it and spoke, and which was clearly the Lord speaking through her. When she left, there was sunlight.
Sunlight already, yeah. This is such a testament to the incredible grace given to chaplains, hospital chaplains.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe they spend just 5 minutes with the patient, and the next 5 minutes with another patient. Most of the time it's just small talk and things like that. But once in a while, heaven comes down on earth
Yes.
during those 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. and the life is changed forever through the ministry of a hospital chaplain, like Mary Beth.
Yeah. And like yourself, where when you came to see me, it was a moment for me where I thought, how cool is it that I get to know someone like you, who comes in and not only wants to know more about what it's like to maybe the transplant, the heart transplant itself, but also is so genuine and so caring. Where I met you and I felt this is a man coming in who, as part of doing chaplaincy work, but I also feel like I've made a friend.
Yeah,
So-
actually it was not work, it was training.
Yeah.
It was training for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt instantly drawn to you, partly because of my early interest in heart transplant and things like that, and it was such a surprise to meet someone in this situation, but also the genuineness of your faith, and yeah, it's like yesterday, but it was more than 1 year ago.
Yeah.
A few days ago, at the time of this recording, you had your first anniversary,
Yes.
on March 7th.
March 7th.
I remember that day.
Your wife's birthday.
Yes,
Yes, your
my
wife's birthday. Yeah, and my little sister's birthday. The day of my transplant, I woke up and with my phone, FaceTimed her and sang her happy birthday
Yes.
before they took me away.
So, we return to you, Matt. Elena, you had your own special connection with this field of heart transplants. But before telling us that, tell us also a little bit about your childhood, about your family of origin, and about about your faith journey.
Well, I grew up in a pastor's home, so grew up in church. If the doors of the church were open, we were there.
You also lived very close to the church?
Growing up, yes, our church was usually on the same property as the church. So
I also grew on the same property with the church. Yeah, no separation between our home and... my father was not a pastor, however.
Oh, okay.
He was a lay member, an elder. It was also a Baptist church or a different... Yeah?
Oh, no, I grew up in the denomination of the Church of God.
Yes.
So I grew up having a strong relationship with the Lord, but once I graduated high school, really, that's when I started to make my faith my own and not just take what my parents had always taught me and what I had always heard, but actually make it my own beliefs. And that took me through college. And
What did you study?
well, I became a children's pastor. I studied, I had changed my degree a few times, but I've eventually
As many people do.
eventually ended up with a degree in Christian ministry. And I was a children's pastor for about 10 years. And then the Lord led me to leave that, and now I work at a pregnancy center where it's a nonprofit, and we help women with unplanned pregnancies.
That also puts you in incredible situations. I imagine you come incredibly close to all kinds of stories, all kinds of persons.
We hear a lot of, it's a heavy ministry,
I can imagine.
because we hear a lot of broken stories and broken hearts and people that are very lost. So we try our best to share Jesus with them and just love them and care for them.
Do you feel sometimes overwhelmed?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
Sometimes I feel like,
It's too much.
there's too much. But even if we just change one life, it makes a difference. And we never know how it's going to affect these people. Later they might come back to us and tell us.
Maybe later during the conversation you come up with one or two stories from your ministry. Yeah. But you, as I said, you also have your own connection with this issue of heart transplant? What happened?
Well, my dad, when he was 56,
56.
he, we knew he had like high blood pressure and some other things, and heart disease runs in his family. But they had never told us that he had a bad heart or anything until when he was 56, he got very sick, and we didn't know what was going on. And at first, we just thought it was the flu or something. And then the whole thing was a roller coaster experience, because we went from he's got the flu to he's going to die all within one weekend, and just very, very up and down and scary times. So that weekend he was sick. They did a heart cath eventually, and the doctor didn't even finish the cath. He just came out and said, his heart is terrible, I can't do anything with it. And basically from there...
He was that blunt.
Oh yes, that blunt. It just kind of... So they moved him into critical care from there, ICU, and the doctors didn't know what to do for him, because his heart was, they said, too bad for anything. He was there for a few weeks, and they finally decided to try a bypass surgery, but they knew it would probably fail.
Not enough.
So they did the bypass surgery, and they sent him home on an IV drip, and he ended up collapsing. After he had been home for a couple of days, he collapsed, and they had to rush him back to the hospital. And he had a series of VTACs, ventricular tachycardia, where your heart beats out of control. And there are so many times throughout his story that he should have died, or should have had brain damage, or should have, just so many things should have happened that didn't. But they decided then that he needed a transplant, but our insurance wouldn't pay for it. And we didn't have that kind of money.
Probably millions.
Yes. So the doctor went to the hospital on my dad's behalf and said, we need to give this man a transplant, and we need to pay for it. So they paid for my dad's transplant, and he was only on the list for 3 weeks.
3 weeks?
3 weeks, which is
3 weeks.
Unheard of in the transplant world, yes. He was on the list for 3 weeks and got a heart. We still don't know who the donor was, and it'll be 10 years this June. But he's doing very well, very healthy, better than he's ever been before, and you would never know it to look at him. But so that's kind of what led to our meeting.
In what ways?
Well, I knew all about heart transplants because I had been through one with my father.
Yes.
And, the Lord just weaves everything so perfectly together. But I had been engaged, and it did not end well. It was a bad relationship. So after we broke up, I decided I just want to be single. I'm not going to be married. I'm going to spoil my nieces and my dogs, and I'm going to travel and live life like I want to live. And then eventually over time, the Lord said, no, I've got something different for you. And I tried to, no, you're talking to somebody else.
You didn't want to suffer again, yeah.
Right. I didn't want to let down my guard and let someone into my life again.
And to disappoint you again.
Right. So I was very hesitant and dragged my feet and put up a protest. But the Lord kept pushing. And so eventually I told him, I got on eHarmony, and which is an online dating website. I told God, I said, okay, I'm going to do this, but you're going to have to bring him to me, because I don't want to do this. I'm only doing it because you won't leave me alone. So I can't say I was entirely obedient. But once I got on eHarmony.
Well, I think you have some biblical precedence to that.
So a few weeks after being on eHarmony, I came across his profile, and he said, on his profile, he said, in all fairness to anyone looking at my page, I am waiting on a heart transplant. And he said he had an LVAD, and I knew exactly what all of that meant. So I, with no motives in mind, even I knew he lived right around the corner from me because he lived in Stelville. So I just sent him a message and said, hey, I know what you're going through. I'll be praying for you. And one thing led to another, and here we are. So we started talking, and then we started dating, and now we're married.
Yeah. So you're not afraid to go through, I mean, with your father, it took 3 weeks to find a heart. Matt, for you, it took 3 years?
3 years. Yeah.
Quite a difference.
Yes, yes.
Quite a difference, and in 3 years, anything could have happened.
Absolutely.
Anything.
Absolutely. And I'm in a little bit more of I was in a more unique situation than other LVAD patients at St. Joseph's. I'm on the LVAD committee. So I had more access to the information, the different statistics of the life expectancy and the dangers and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But none of that ever bothered me because I thought, well, if I never get a heart, it's not this heart that really counts anyway. You know, it's, and in fact, at one of the meetings where they were going over some of those very heavy statistics, the gal doing the presentation rushed through some of that, and I asked her after. I said,
take your time.
Yeah, I said, did you rush through that because you were worried about me? And she said yes. I said, it's okay. Numbers are what numbers are. They don't lie.
Yes.
But I don't worry about those.
Mm-hmm.
I trust God, and that's it. So I didn't care what the statistics were, because statistics say somebody shouldn't have raised themselves from the dead anyway.
Yes.
So if I can trust in the one who did that,
yes,
then I can trust that I'll be okay.
Matt, was a specific reason for you to wait that long? You needed a special product? It was related to your shape, your size?
Yeah.
That was part of...
That was part of it. There are two categories of transplant recipient waiting on the waiting list.
Yes.
There's a 1A where you have to wait in the hospital.
Yes.
There's nothing else they can do for you. You cannot go home. Yes. Or there's a 1B where you can wait at home. With receiving the LVAD, I was able to wait at home. So it was going to be a little bit longer.
I understand.
But also, I'm 6'2", so it has to be someone of comparable size, because someone who is...
So not all hearts are equal.
Yes, yes.
To say that.
That's right, yeah. So it had to be someone of comparable size. A 5'2" person, their heart wouldn't be big enough. So it was all that, and then my blood type and everything had to line up the right way.
Yes. So that was a long time for you to reflect, to give time to ponder on all your questions to God, to pray over. Yeah.
Yeah. When people would ask me, "How do you wait? How do you wait with a smile?" And
I also ask you probably that.
Yeah. And I said, well, I pray really 3 things in regards to a heart transplant.
Yes.
I pray, 1, for the donor, that I would get to meet them in heaven and thank them. I prayed for their family, that out of that tragedy they would know that lives were saved, because it wouldn't just be mine. It would be whatever other organs were donated to help people. And then I said, okay, God, this is in your hands. I can't do anything about it, so I'm not going to worry. I will let you do what you do, because you do everything a lot better than I do.
Matt, frankly, many people have faith in God, yeah? Many people do pray, and they really trust God. But actually not many people have this kind of serene and calm faith in God. You think this is something about you also? I mean, it's mainly from God. It's also part of your, let's say, temperament or heritage, or you think every Christian could have and should have such a peaceful reliance, confident calmness. What do you think?
I think should have it. I think it's because it makes life easier. But too, for me, for the time that I spent away from God and was a little bit more wild, a little bit quicker to anger and quicker to speak instead of being slow to speak and slow to anger.
Yes.
And over time, as I began to really get back in touch with the Lord and grow, I learned more of patience and a gentleness to where now a lot of things just don't bother me. I just let them go. And that's helped. And I think a lot of that is the Lord and me being able to recognize that getting angry isn't going to be good for a bad heart. Being stressed out isn't good for a very enlarged and bad heart. So just a calmness and a peace. And then, of course, the Lord saying, hey, I'm in control. It's going to be okay.
Matt, I remember distinctly one day, probably in one of our first meetings, you said something like that. Two things, actually. You said, if it took my heart to deteriorate, maybe these are mine words, but I think you recognize the idea. In order for my spiritual heart to get better, I'm all right with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You're absolutely right. That it's worth it for one to go bad, for the natural to go bad, in order for the spiritual heart to grow.
So you wouldn't argue with God if He would told you, Matt, my purpose is accomplished. You are now a fully saved person. I'm not going to give you a new heart. I'm going to resurrect you for the life eternal. You wouldn't argue with God if you would have said that to you. Huh?
No. In fact, I had a friend who, probably a couple of weeks before I got the call, as I was waiting in the hospital, he said, well, Matt, I'm still praying that God will miraculously heal your heart, that you won't have to go through surgery. And I said, I appreciate that. That's great. That would be amazing.
Sure.
But I would rather go through the surgery because the wait, and to be able to wait patiently with a smile, even if it never comes, at least I knew I got to leave that if it never came, then people knew, hey, he was okay. He smiled all the way through it and trusted God all the way through it. And that was going to be fine. It would have been tough on my wife and my family, but that's also how most of them felt, was okay. If this never happens, we still trust God because He still takes care of us. So.
Yeah, that was the second, and you anticipated it already. I think you started, probably this is how it happens, you started on the waiting list down there, and little by little you came up, and at one point you were on the first line, but you said, if one day they will tell me, Matt, we are going to erase your name from there, and you said, I'm all right.
Absolutely. My name wasn't ever erased from the book of life.
Yes.
So if I'm not here, I'm there. So one way or the other, I was fine. One way or the other, I was healed.
In this case, both ways. Actually.
That's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Both ways, yeah. Do you happen to, do you remember your reaction when they told you, Matt, this is the day we have a heart for you?
Yeah.
Of course you do.
I called my wife, and I said, honey, Dr. Markham just called me. I have a heart. They're going to transfer me to Emory University Hospital. And then I just waited for the line to come in of all the nurses and everyone there who came in to hug me and just love on me. And,
yeah, you've been there for such a long time, and of
Yeah.
course they got attached to you very much, as I did
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. And for me, one of the coolest stories to come out of it, I have a good friend who is an EMT, you know, and works on ambulances and whatnot. And he was working with a guy one time who said, because they were filling in, one of them had to fill in for the other's partner, however it worked out. And they were talking about the ups and downs of that job. And the guy working with my friend said, yeah, one day my partner and I had to go, we got a call, it was our last call of the day, that we had to go to St. Joseph's and transfer a guy to Emory University Hospital who had to have a heart transplant. He said, so we're thinking it's going to be some old man who is going to be sour and not going to be in a good mood. He said, but we got there, and it was this young guy, and he was just so excited. He was so
smiling from ear to ear.
He was not nervous at all. He said, and it really touched him. It makes the job okay. And so my friend's talking to him, and he said, do you remember his name? Did he look like this? And then sure enough, on my phone, I have a picture that he is in. And so it was this same guy. And so, you know, months later, to hear that day, he thought, you know what, this job is worth it. Because of this one guy who's about to have a heart removed from his body and one put in. And he's smiling and he's happy. You know, so that to me, that touched my heart more than anything else, because he remembered that. And it's something that I guess he gets to hold on to.
Yes, something which will remain with him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they get the preparation. Did they bring a chaplain for you before surgery there? Do you remember that? Not. You don't remember.
No, I
Probably
don't
not.
think so.
Interesting.
And I was okay.
I'm sure, but I was curious.
Yeah.
Do you know how long was the surgery?
Elena knows all that better than I do.
It was about 10.5 hours.
10.5
It was very long, very long.
And waiting and waiting and waiting.
Yes, more waiting. But once he came out, it was a struggle. That first week was a real struggle because he had some adverse reactions to the medicine, and he had some real bad nausea and terrible dreams, and he kind of got into a slump. But eventually he got over it, and
she says eventually it took her talking with her dad who had been through this. And
your dad had been through the same, do you remember?
well, he had been through the surgery, but
Yeah, but the post-surgery.
no, my dad didn't go through that. But different bodies,
Sure,
different circumstances.
Sure.
So,
But her dad came and told her, as I was laying there, she's not doing much. He said, Elena, right now Matt has nothing. He doesn't have the strength to bring himself back. You have to be his rock. So she came in and reminded me that I had shushed her. And I learned that no matter where you are in life, never shush your wife, even if you've just gone through a heart transplant. She said, you shushed me. If you shush me again, I will leave you here. You know, I will, it'll be up to you. She said, but it's time for you to come back. I'm going to put on some praise music. I'm going to read some from the Bible. And that kick-started it. Because I remember thinking, I can't believe she just fussed at me. And then, okay, good. And it turned. So from there on, I was able to really come back. And a week and a half later, I was gone. I was only in the hospital 2 weeks post-transplant.
Just 2 weeks. What a difference. I think the first patients had to remain in hospital for long because the immune system was down.
Yes.
And they had to be protected against any germ. Now the medication you get is so much better.
Yes.
You have to take medicines to suppress your immunity forever, or it goes lower and lower. I mean, the medication lower and lower.
it's forever, but they continually check it. And I'm already at a fairly low dose, so which is very nice. And they keep such a good watch on all of that. So it's been good. I've really enjoyed the process because I'm still here. So
Yes. Are there any limitations or restrictions for your life? Do you have to follow a certain diet, a certain pattern of exercise or anything?
I could exercise more than I do. I stay fairly active, and I stay pretty low sodium, our diet. We mostly eat at home, and I do a lot of the cooking, most of the majority of the cooking.
Really?
I like to cook anyway. So all of that, and we follow all of that pretty well.
I read long ago, I don't know if it's real science or it's just, teaching, or that if people who got a new heart, if they don't have healthy lifestyle, especially nutrition and exercise, the new heart will be deteriorated quite soon again.
Yeah, I understand that as well.
Clogged with cholesterol and plaque and everything. Yeah.
Yes. In fact, at my recent 1 year last week, and they checked all of that, and everything was great.
Wonderful.
All of my blood work, my cholesterol was under the top lines, and so they were very pleased. And in fact, I got a kick out of one of my nurses one time with my LVAD, who looked at my cholesterol, and she ran 3 or 4 miles every day, and she said, your cholesterol is better than mine.
Yeah. So what are you doing now besides going for checkups and cooking? And
Well, I was finally able to finish school in December.
Wonderful.
And I'm applying for jobs now, but I volunteer at our church on Wednesday nights with our youth group, and on Sunday mornings. On Fridays, I pray with my sister's pastor. We go around and pray with different refugee families in the Atlanta area.
Why do you have an interest in refugees? Because you're long-time Americans. I mean, I don't think you have anything to do with that personally.
Well, my sister's pastor wanted a prayer partner to go around with him, and said, I know Matt isn't able to do much. Would he like to come? And I said, sure. Because it's fun. I get to meet people from cultures that I never would have met otherwise. And it's neat to meet everyone, because I know whenever I get to heaven, that's what it's going to look like. And there's going to be people of all different colors and nationalities and languages, and that's going to be really cool. So I'd like to get to know some now.
And we all will be refugees.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
From this, cursed planet.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yes.
Yeah.
No wall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, one more question for you, Matt.
Yeah.
What do you think on doing for the future kind of work?
Well, I know I'm called to be a hospital chaplain.
Wonderful.
And I get to do some of that kind of on a volunteer basis. With certain patients, they'll call me and ask me if I can come visit, or if I'll call them on the phone and talk with them, people who are going to go through some of the stuff I did. And so I have that chance to do that and pray with them and meet people who don't know what to expect and are scared. So it's been such an awesome time to know that what I've gone through allows me to share that and to comfort people. One of the young men that I spoke to called me and said, they asked me to talk to a guy, but can I give him your number? Because he said, you were such a comfort for me. I know you could be a comfort for him too.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, it's from your life. It's not from books.
Yes.
Or heard from someone else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Firsthand.
Yes.
Elena, do you have some stories about some of those young ladies in difficult situations you deal with?
Oh boy.
Tell the one about the young lady from Africa. It's my favorite story that she tells.
Well, that one, there was a lady that had moved here from Africa, but she came by herself. Her family and friends all still lived in Africa, and she met a man here, and he promised he loved her, and one thing led to another, and she was a Christian, but she made some wrong choices and ended up pregnant, and she at first wanted to have an abortion because she was so scared of what her family would think and what everyone would say, and
being alone
in a foreign country. And so she came to us for the pregnancy test, and we did an ultrasound and showed her the baby. And she decided to keep the baby, but the whole time, so we have a program where they can come throughout their pregnancy and afterwards and take classes and like parenting and relationships, and so the whole time that she came to us throughout her pregnancy, she still seemed very sad, and we just prayed for her and loved her, and then at that time we had to move to another building, and we lost touch with her. Well, several months later, when we were on our new location, she came walking through our doors one day, and she said, "I'm so glad I found you. I lost touch, but I wanted to find you again." And she had a little baby boy in her arms, and I asked if I could hold him, and she was just smiling, and the baby was smiling, and she was just a different person, just so happy. And as I was holding him, she looked at him and said, "Do you remember hearing her voice when you were in my belly?" She said, "She's the reason you're alive." Just, wow. That little boy is alive because we were able to love on her and give her hope. And it doesn't happen every day, but we do have stories like that.
Sometimes you have disappointments, sometimes
yes.
you invest, I imagine, you invest
Yes.
a lot in a person, and then they still make decisions which make you sad.
Yes.
But you can't make decisions for anyone else.
No.
You are
And
there to help.
Once
for those who
if
really-
they do choose abortion, we invite them to come back.
even
because
that, you
we
still
have
want
several-
to minister to them. Yeah.
Right. We have several of the women on our staff that have had abortions in their past, and they know what they're dealing with. So we invite them to come back so that we can walk through the healing process for that and tell them that God still loves them and we still love them. And we see a lot of brokenness, but there's also a lot of God's grace. And
Elena, do you also have a kind of a support system? People you can share your joys and your burdens and your fears, or
oh yes, I definitely. Well, all of the staff at the pregnancy center, we all know what it's like being there day in and day out, so we can talk to each other. But also, of course, my husband and my family, and we know there's a lot of people praying for us, so that helps too.
yeah, this is kind of first line battle.
Definitely,
First line, yeah. It's hard. It's a war.
it
It's
is.
a war for life.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I love speaking with you hours and hours. Unfortunately, I have a clock.
Yeah.
I have to come to an end now. I appreciate so much you coming and sharing your faith journey, your life journey, and I can't wait to see what God is keeping ahead of you.
Thank
You
you.
know that saying, the best is yet to come.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for having us. It's just so good to see you.
Thank you.
So.
There'll be so many people watching this program, and God will continue to touch hearts, to renew hearts
Yes.
and lives. His opportunities keep growing and growing. and do just a small part of that. And this is enough.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ce istorie uimitoare, ce lecție de credință copleșitoare. Acum foarte, foarte puțini dintre noi vor avea nevoie sau vor avea șansa să poarte în piept o inimă nouă. Dar toți, chiar toți, avem chemarea, chiar obligația să purtăm în suflet o inimă nouă, gândire, emoții și sentimente, voință și hotărâri noi, determinate de Dumnezeu. O inimă nouă în piept nu înseamnă deloc nemurirea, ci doar câțiva ani în plus. Dar o inimă nouă în suflet este începutul aici și acum al veșniciei fericite cu Dumnezeu. O putem avea, trebuie să o avem chiar acum.